Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
Today, we're looking at something that kind of flew under the radar in the mainstream news. It's a Federal Register filing from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, and it outlines a really significant expansion of biometric tracking at the U.S. border.
Yeah, it's a big one. For anyone tracking regulatory changes, this definitely warrants a closer look. So our goal today is really to, give you the shortcut to understanding what this means. It impacts a huge number of travelers, leverages new tech, and frankly, involves a level of data gathering we haven't seen quite like this before.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The absolute core of it, the main takeaway from this filing. CBP is planning for the U.S. to photograph every non-U.S. citizen, not just on entry, but on departure too.
Both ways.
And they say this is possible now because of, and this is their phrase, much improved facial recognition technology.
Right. And that's the key shift, the capability change. It's huge. We're moving away from, spot checks, looking at physical documents.
Yeah, the old way.
Exactly. To a system that's designed to create a verifiable, real-time biometric record for every single non-citizen every single time they cross the border, in or out.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk scope, because I think that's where it gets really interesting. When you hear biometric tracking at the border, most people probably think tourists, maybe visa holders.
That's the common assumption, yeah.
But who exactly does this new rule cover?
And this is probably the most critical point for listeners to grasp. The scope is incredibly broad. It applies to all non-U.S. citizens, period.
All.
All. And they explicitly state this includes immigrants already living here. We're talking permanent residents, green card holders.
Wait, hold on. That's actually huge. So someone with a green card living and working in the U.S., maybe with kids who are U.S. citizens,
Yep.
they now have to do a biometric exit scan every time they leave the country, just like a short-term visitor.
That's what the rule mandates. It's a massive administrative and I'd say structural change.
It really reframes who is subject to this kind of tracking.
It does. It suggests that DHS views all non-citizens, regardless of their status or ties here, as part of this entry-exit verification system. We've had photos taken at entry for a while now, for many people, but the real operational shift here is requiring it on every single exit.
So they're trying to close that exit data gap that's been talked about for years. They want to be able to snap that photo at airports, seaports, land borders, anywhere you leave.
Every time. And the infrastructure behind it, it's not just about taking a picture. They talk about creating galleries of images for individual.
Galleries, like multiple photos.
Yeah, think of it as an aggregation project. They'll combine photos they already have, maybe from border agents before, from passports, visa applications, other travel docs.
Okay.
And then cross-reference all that with the new live photos taken right there at the entry and exit points.
Yeah.
It creates a kind of permanent, digitally cross-referenced identity file.
That sounds complex and definitely not something you just switch on overnight. What's the timeline look like?
Well, the official effective date is set for December 26, 2025, so quite soon, actually.
Okay. But CBP themselves admit this is a huge undertaking. They estimate the full rollout, getting this system up and running everywhere, could take 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. Wow. That really underlines the scale of this.
It's a monumental task to standardize this across every single port of departure.
Right. Which brings us to the why. Why this big push now, especially given, past attempts at exit tracking haven't always gotten off the ground.
Well, stepping back a bit, you do have to consider the political context, just reporting impartially here. This initiative really got legs under the Trump administration, which prioritized using tech for border control and immigration enforcement.
Okay.
But it's interesting, right? The rule was first floated back in 2021, and now the current administration is the one pushing this specific tech solution forward. It kind of suggests a bipartisan bureaucratic consensus on the goal of exit tracking, even if the methods were debated.
So the technology seems to be the enabler now. What specific problems are CBP saying this huge system will solve? What's their justification in the filing? They list 5 main justifications. Unsurprisingly, security and enforcement are front and center. First, it's about national security concerns, specifically terrorism threats. It's usually number 1.
Right.
Second, cracking down on fraudulent travel documents. People using real documents that aren't theirs.
Okay, makes sense. And then the big one for immigration enforcement, overstays.
Absolutely. Tracking overstays, people who remain longer than their visa allows, is the third key goal. It's a huge operational challenge they want to tackle. Fourth is addressing people present who weren't properly admitted or paroled in the first place.
And the fifth sounds more administrative.
Yeah, basically data cleanup, correcting incorrect or incomplete biographic info for travelers. They want that real-time biometric verification moving beyond just paper. And they do admit in the filing, look, we struggled before because we didn't have secure exit lanes everywhere.
Right, the infrastructure wasn't there.
Exactly, but now they're claiming the facial recognition tech is so good, it overcomes those old physical infrastructure problems. The tech, they argue, makes the policy feasible nationwide now.
Okay, so the tech is the driver. But let's look closer at what they're collecting, because it sounds like it might not just be a photo.
That's a really important nuance. While facial recognition is the main focus right now, the filing includes the phrase, other biometric data could also be collected.
Ah, the classic open door language.
Precisely. It gives the agency flexibility, potential permission to expand into other biometrics later on. Fingerprints, iris scans, who knows? It's not defined yet, but the possibility is built in.
And here's something I found really telling about maybe the ultimate scope here. They're lifting age exemptions.
Yes, that's right. Currently, kids under 14 and seniors over 79 are generally exempt from this kind of biometric collection at the border.
But this new rule gives CBP permission to use facial recognition on those groups too.
Correct. It removes those age brackets, making the data collection truly cover the entire non-citizen population, regardless of age.
That detail, for me anyway, it sort of suggests the primary driver might not be just security. I mean, statistically, kids and the very elderly aren't the highest risk for terrorism or document fraud.
That's a fair point.
It seems more geared towards data maximization, getting the absolute fullest possible gallery of images, building the most complete record possible, no matter the individual's profile.
And that ties directly back to their stated objective, creating a fully integrated entry-exit system. DHS clearly believes having this complete data set will make it much, much easier to track anyone trying to skirt immigration laws or who overstays. It's about a clean, verifiable digital trail for every non-citizen trip. Forever, essentially.
Okay, so CBP has its reasons laid out. National security, fraud, enforcement. On paper, you can see the logic, but naturally there are wider concerns, right? Experts outside the government are raising flags that go beyond just the border crossing itself.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets into bigger questions about data and privacy. A major concern some experts have is that this massive biometric database isn't being built in a vacuum. Meaning it comes at the same time that DHS has been making efforts, over the past months and years to get access to more data from other parts of the government, agencies that are usually pretty separate.
Ah, you're talking about trying to access records from places like the IRS, Social Security Administration.
Exactly. Financial data, employment history data, things that on the surface have very little to do with whether someone's visa expired.
Right. That's where the potential scope really expands.
That's where the tension really sharpens. You have CBP's stated border security goals, stopping terrorists, catching overstayers, plausible goals. But then you see this move alongside efforts to pull in financial and social data, and concerns arise about the sheer aggregation and potential uses of all this linked personal information.
So if you combine permanent biometric identifiers, your face scan, with your tax history from the IRS, or your work history from SSA, suddenly this system isn't just about checking documents at the airport. It starts to look more like a tool for potentially much broader domestic monitoring.
That's the crux of the concern for privacy advocates. The sheer volume of data, its centralized nature, and the potential to link it across different government functions. It could fundamentally change the relationship between non-citizens, including legal permanent residents, and the state. It shifts immigration enforcement from a process at the border to potentially something much more continuous and integrated into daily life within the U.S. It really highlights that tough balance. How do you secure borders and prevent fraud without building an infrastructure that could enable pervasive surveillance?
Okay, so let's quickly recap the key points for everyone listening.
Yes, sir. So the big takeaways. This new rule is sweeping. It covers all non-citizens, including green card holders.
Right, not just visitors.
Not just visitors. It mandates biometric scans, likely facial photos, on every single exit from the U.S., not just entry. It also gets rid of the age exemptions, so kids under 14 and adults over 79 are included.
And the justifications are national security, stopping document fraud, and cracking down on visa overstays, all enabled by better facial recognition tech.
That's the official rationale, yes.
And it's not just a proposal anymore. They're aiming for full implementation over the next 3 to 5 years across all types of ports, air, sea, and land. That's a massive logistical challenge.
Huge. The scale is really unprecedented for exit tracking in the U.S.
Okay, so here's something to chew on, a final thought as you process all this. We have this plan to create enormous, permanent digital galleries of biometric data for millions of people, an infrastructure that will likely last for decades. And the public comment period where people can weigh in is expected to open October 27th, just days after the rule was filed.
Very quick turnaround.
Very quick. So the question is,
Yeah.
what does that tight timeline potentially suggest about the balance the government is striking? The trade-off between their perceived need for rapid implementation of the security system versus the need for perhaps more thorough public discussion about such a fundamental, long-lasting shift in our digital security and surveillance landscape.
A lot to consider there. Knowledge is definitely key.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for this deep dive. Thanks for tuning in.
Until next time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.